Welcome to the Transform My Dance Studio podcast, the only podcast for dance studio owners, where each week we bring you business growth strategies to help you increase your profits, impact the lives of more students, while ensuring you get back some time to have a little life outside of the studio. It's time for you to become the go-to studio in your area. Now, here's your host, founder of the Dance Studio Owners Association, Clint Salter.
Hey there, dance studio owners. Welcome to the Transform My Dance Studio podcast. It's Clint Salter here, and I'm so excited that you're joining us for today's episode. Now, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce today's guest, marketing strategist and copywriter, Eve John. Now, Eve has a passion for helping service-based businesses grow through the most simple and highly effective marketing and sales systems. Guys, I know you're going to love this. She's also going to be sharing the stage with Arnold Schwarzenegger later this year at the Total Success Summit, where she's going to be a featured speaker. So, Eve, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and our studio owners today.
Oh, Clint, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be able to share some of my expertise with everybody.
Yes, and our studio owners are hungry for some marketing and sales gold. So I'm looking forward to jumping in. Eve, tell us a little bit, firstly, about you and what you do inside your business to help people.
Well, as you sort of introduced me, I work specifically with service-based businesses, because what I find is that in so many industries and particularly in dance and health and fitness, everybody is really, really good at what they do, but they're not really good about marketing it. And I think that holds people back a little bit. And I really feel that my clients and the industries that I work in are really making changes to people's lives in positive ways through connecting them, through giving them opportunities, through getting them to meet people and be fit. And it's something that really gives me joy to be able to help people with some, systematize their business and get marketing out there so that they're attracting the right type of clients and they're able to keep the right type of clients and also stand out from the crowd a little bit as well.
Totally. And our studio owners, we're seeing more and more studios pop up all the time. Dances continually becoming more popular. And so we're always looking for ways that we can stand out. I firstly want to touch on the system side of things because, for a lot of our studio owners, they're either running their business solo or they might have an office manager or a receptionist. And a lot of what they do is in their head. Yeah. How do we kind of start, going about creating systems so that other people, we can delegate to people and other people can actually take on tasks and do them nearly as well as we can do them?
I like that you added nearly as well.
I have to, right? Because I was having a conversation earlier with one of our inner circle members. She's like, I just need to find someone that's as passionate, that's as driven, that's ambitious about my business as I am. And I was like, good luck. When you find them, tell me about them. And I think that's why we need to build systems.
Oh, I agree with you there. I think it is the issue for many business owners is that they live their business. And I think in dance, you have to be. You can't run a business without passion, because your clients and, your dancers will see it. So probably my the top tip and what I actually do with my clients, and it's very, very simple, Clint. It's just grabbing a particular exercise book, and every time that you do something, just making a note and putting the steps down. Now, I find actually handwriting them out a lot easier, because there's a process in the brain that connects between when you handwrite something and when you and the memory that it goes into your brain. And we often find these days that people are struggling to read content online or instructions online. So I find just starting with the simple step-by-step, what exactly you need done is a great way to do it. Another way that you can do it as well is if it's something that, say, perhaps is on the computer system, say it might be invoicing or sending out reminders about changes to timetables. If it's something that's on the computer in front of you, there's some really great programs that you can use to do a screen record. So that you can make a short little video for somebody that actually steps them through what they need to do. And it doesn't need to be all professional and audio, but it's like having you peeking over their shoulder when they're learning and, starting to implement the things that you want them to start to do. I think probably the key thing is working out what is really important and really necessary and what kind of needs to be done that's important, that needs to be done, that and working out which people you have in your team and who can do what as well. So I've got in my team my VA that does a lot of my social media stuff. She's probably early 20s because I can't use Snapchat and she's all over it. So finding out people that have a particular set of skills that tie in with what you're wanting to do, and giving them a little bit of leeway and giving them some instructions and allowing them to take ownership of it, I think is a good way to start to let those small systems move across. But I think there's certain things that you really should never outsource to anybody else until you're particularly comfortable or you're paying a professional, and that certainly is your finances. I think, you need to have a professional person doing your books, or, you need to be doing it yourself, or somebody that is trained, and sales and marketing as well. I think that needs to be always overseen by the owner or the person who's running the business, because that is, no sales, no business.
Totally. I've got an interesting question for you. And it just came up as you were talking about, letting go, and you should hold on to your finances, completely agree. Sales and marketing, completely agree. But what do you say to those, the business owners, our studio owners who have come from a technician background, they're dance teachers that go into being a studio owner, and all of a sudden they've got to learn quickly how to run a business. And so that they might not be naturally gifted or have really the want to be great at sales and marketing, although they know that they need that to grow their business. I mean, how can someone like that get more passionate and get more knowledge around sales and marketing if they're like, well, I just want to teach class?
Well, I think, even by listening to this podcast, I think that's a great start. Being part of your community as well. You need to learn. I always say, you can always step on the shoulders of giants. So look at those that have been there before you. And this is something, and I'm really glad you asked me this question, because I think as business owners, we often forget the passion in our business. And, it's 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning and you're thinking, gosh, why am I doing this to myself? And I think for those who are the technicians and the instructors, and that is their passion, I think being able to see, I'll use it like, I have a 5-year-old and she's doing dancing at the moment, and her teacher she's in love with her because she's so passionate about what she's doing. Now, if there wasn't any sales and marketing, or that the studio didn't promote themselves well enough, how would I get my daughter into the right type of studio with the right type of dance teacher, with somebody? And the reason I chose this particular class with this teacher is because I saw her dance at a concert and I thought she was, an outstanding dancer. And then when I took my daughter up to her later on, she was so kind and generous. And I sort of maybe a little bit stalked her to find out where she was teaching, but sure. It was how I was approached and how their marketing was that I thought, this studio is for me. So finding out why you're doing. We often hear people talk about why, what's your why, what's your purpose. I like to take it one little bit of a step further. So for me, my why is to help businesses help other people. And obviously, like most businesses, you need to make money because otherwise, it's a hobby. But really for me, one of the whys, one of my obligation is because I am the very best in my local area at doing this. So I have an obligation to people to let them know that my services are actually out there and that I care and I want to help them. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit more, looking at how, the obligation that you have to, and obligations sometimes is a bit of a negative word because, we will say, I feel obliged to do something, but obligation from a place of love where you think, what about those kids that perhaps don't have a lot of friends at school and, when they come to their dance class, they light up because they might have had a bad day at school where sadly someone was mean to them and they walk into that dance class and their friends are there. So having that, thinking of that in your mind, thinking that you're actually helping people. And I could tell you all the names of my dance teachers over, the 25 years that I danced and the impacts that they had on my life. So I think it's going a little bit deeper and realizing you don't have to be great at everything, but honesty and authenticity is something that I find lots of my clients tie their marketing into. Mm-hmm. Because you need to be able to tell people why, and because I don't think dancing is always just about the dancing.
Of course not.
So I think, and that's where people often are a little bit hit and miss with their marketing. I picked up a flyer of a dance school the other day at my child's school, and I thought, and they were talking the great points about confidence and and fitness and things, but they were missing some of the key elements. And particularly for myself, I put my daughter into a dance and play program when she was 3. I did that for me, not for her. So I think it's looking at who you really want to help and how best to help them, and not being shy about giving people the opportunity to choose you. They don't have to if they don't want to, but they need to know about your business. They need to know about what you can offer and how you're different as well. Yeah. So I think finding a community, which obviously you guys are offering a fantastic community with support and skills, because quite often we only see the support aspect. I think that's, the key, that is expertise and skill as well. And perhaps you do need to delegate some parts of it, or, get people that can help you within the business to be able to do the important and key parts. But also it needs to come from you because it's your business, it's your passion, it needs to be your voice, because that's why people are attracted to your studio, because of you.
Yeah, all really great advice. I want to ask you, Eve, what were you looking for when you were enrolling your daughter into dancing?
Well, it's kind of funny. I wanted something that my daughter could enjoy. Being that she was only 3, I didn't want, it was just a little taster for her, but I wanted something where I felt that I didn't need to be, all dressed up and turn up in, high heels and a dress where, if I was running late or something, and a caring environment. And where they had a lot of different ages of dancers, because I find my daughter, I could leave her at a studio all day and she'll just watch the big girls.
Yeah.
So thinking, and it was their marketing that I found quite attractive, because I think, Clint, I have to tell you, the one killer for me is when any of my clients use a stock photo, so a photo that they've picked online, and you can have a look. You can pick them a mile away.
Totally.
And they actually had a photo of the actual the dancers, and then a little blurb. It was Casey, and it was Casey in her beautiful costume, and the little testimonial from Casey. So it was real and authentic. And I walked in there, and Casey was there, rather than just a standard sort of thing. And I love that authenticity, to be able to. And I chose that, now I know that the school's actually traveling over to America this year. They're dancing at Disneyland. I've already given them my credit card for the next time that they do it. But I didn't know the details of how in-depth what they offered. I wanted something that was right for my child, and their marketing really attracted me in the fact that they were talking about building a love of dance, building friendships, and also letting children explore movement and music, because you can watch little children and they're just always moving around and rocking and dancing. So I think it was part of their marketing that really actually got me.
Yeah. What about because I think it's interesting talking to someone who is a dance mum, not in the traditional sense, but is a dance mom, has a daughter, has a child in dance, and also knows the business side of things. What is the dance studio doing really well that you attend? What are they doing really well that you go, oh, that's good? Or maybe like, what are they doing where you think they need to work on that?
Well, I think some of what they're doing is they have great teachers, and I think that makes a big difference. One of the key things, and this is one thing that I always tell my clients to do, is they don't make the dance studio the star of their advertising. They make their students the stars. So rather than the principal saying, oh, this is me and this is what my experience, she talks about, obviously a selected group of dancers who have done exceptionally well, some of the teachers who have, had outstanding careers, and she makes them the star rather than just talking about herself and the studio. It's promotion of her clients, so to speak, and I sort of equate it, and you'll have to forgive me with this analogy. I sort of equate it as a woman, and I'm sure there's many women that will sort of go, oh, I've done this, and men as well. We often see those 12-week weight loss journeys, and what we find and what the statistics show is that they use the visual pictures. Now, what we tend to do is we'll try and find a picture that looks a little bit like us, so that we can see, oh, that's me before. So if I do this, this is going to be me after. So they make their clients the stars of the promotion, and that's what I think this studio did very well. Obviously, it's a very different tactic, but she talked about, one of the girls who started out when she was 5, and now she's doing this, and she's studying at the Victorian Institute of Art, and some of those sorts of things as well. And I thought, wow, that could be my daughter, and obviously that's what the school can achieve for you. And then they put just other things about the kids and friendships, and congratulations to Paula, who's got 3 of her dance friends in her wedding. So hitting some of those different the different buttons, and that's something that I'd like to share as a copywriter with your with the listeners as well, about looking at the different emotions and really understanding your clients as to why they want to put their children in dancing, and why children and adults or of all ages, why we want to dance, and how we can market effectively to the different types of dancers and our clients as well.
Yeah, so important. That emotion. I mean, one of the things we get a lot in the association is people saying like, I don't know what to write and how to sound different. Everyone's saying, come to dance. It's fun. It's social. It's good exercise. I mean, what's something we can do? What's something, practical that we can do, or an exercise that we can do to really, for us to kind of start thinking more about the emotional side of writing copy and engaging with potential parents that way? How can we get started on that?
Well, I think, with my clients and looking at the industry, traditionally we are advertising to the mother or to a female. So I think everybody would kind of agree that, well, in Australia, 80% of the buying decisions are made by a woman, but particularly in dance, it's quite often, I'm sure you would find that it's a mother taking a daughter or a son to a studio.
Yes, exactly.
We're going to, so targeting a woman, and particularly really knowing your clients. So I always think there's 2 clients that you have to look at. So you have the parent, who is basically going to probably in most cases physically take their child and if not pay for the class. And you have the child as well. And they've got very, very different emotions as to why they're coming. For a mum, I love to see messages around love. I actually said, and you mentioned it, I'm speaking on stage with Arnold Schwarzenegger in March. But my career highlight for me was being an official backstage helper at the Carolina Theatre in Ringwood, Victoria, last year as a dance mum. And I thoroughly enjoyed that, and that came from a place of love. So marketing towards, the love, and quite often it's the shared joy of dance. So it might be, a mother that's going to be taking her daughter, and just the love of being able to watch them. A promotion that I had for one of my clients was around love. The studio was deciding to not allow cameras to be videotaping or photographing the dancers that were, I think that they would have been around 14 or 15, because the studio, that the dance teacher had a bit of a concern that there was some of the younger girls and around that age had some body image issues, and they didn't want their photo taken, if they weren't ready, and they all loved the selfies. So we actually had to sell that to the parents, and we sold it from a place of love, and said, we're asking you not to take photographs, because we want you to be in the moment and enjoy that moment. And when your child looks up, they don't want to see a camera, they want to see your eyes. So it's that message. And the other thing that we find often with parents is, and you can market your messaging, is around fear and guilt. Now, I don't mean that in a mean sort of way, but for mums and for me, and it's that I have a headline here that I've used before, and it's afraid your child may not fit in. And I think when your child starts to go to school, you're afraid that they might not fit in, or they might not make any friends. And we've probably all seen that meme that's gone around social media. Why do you pay so much for your child's dance class? And it talks about, well, I want my child to feel confident, I want my child to exercise, but I want my child to have friends outside of school. So again, it ties into that fear that parents have that their child is going to miss out, or and I'm speaking to a lot of, because I often speak to my clients. So if I'm working with the studio, I often speak to the parents or the dancers themselves. And, the stories that we hear around mums that have said, and when I was in high school, this happened to me, and, nobody talked to me at school, but I was so lucky that I had my dancing friends, my basketball friends. So I think when you're writing advertisements or writing your marketing material, we all try and get really, really clever, but it's really just looking at the emotions and what's going through people's minds as to, the different emotions that we have. I don't like to, there's an emotional hot button about, competition. I don't think, for somebody who's not trained in copywriting, I don't think you want to turn it into a competition. There's certain effective things that you can do, but you probably get crucified if you did them on social media if they're not done effectively. So I think if you can focus on speaking to your clients, really getting to know why people are coming to the studio, but not just because it's local and you offer a great range of classes. It's how do you feel when you come here? And these are questions that I find people that are involved in health and fitness and particularly movement. I think there's just something amazing about people that teach us how to move our body, just the mind-body connection. I'm sure many of your studio owners can see a dancer walk into the reception area, and they can judge that body language and just say, that poor love looks like she's had a terrible
day. Yeah.
So I think it's speaking to people, but really, really speaking to people. So when you're if you're doing a show around, or if you've got people coming in, asking them the question, what would you love your daughter or your son to get out of this physically? And what would you like them to get out of it emotionally? And every time they give you a response, when you finish, go and write that down and use your marketing around that, because people will actually tell you what they want to hear in their own marketing. And I don't think that there's ever a one ad hits all type of approach. You need to look at the different types of reasons and have what we call a message market media match. So you need to look at who your market is. So we've used the example of mothers, but you might be targeting the dancers, and it might be a 15-year-old hip hop students, and the message, your messaging there probably wouldn't need to include elegance and style and posture, because hip hop is a very different type of dance. And if you were going to have, where would you put that? Well, you probably could put that in Facebook or social media, or in a school newsletter. That's not probably the type of thing that you, or even up in a pizza shop, somewhere that's a little bit more funky, a little bit more upbeat, rather than perhaps having that targeted at parents in a piano and violin studio. So it's really thinking about having all points to your triangle match. So who's your target? What message are you going to give them, and what media or medium? And that's just simply how you're going to deliver that message as well.
So valuable, Eve, and I love it because our studio owners, obviously working with some and being a mother who has a child in dancing, it's really valuable. I want to shift gears and talk about attracting students. And, one of the things that we're seeing work really well for our studio owners is, Facebook advertising and the different ways that we can get in front of our ideal parent a lot more easily than what we used to with a news back in the day, where the only way we could really advertise was through a newspaper and a performing arts feature with an editorial, and times have definitely changed. So what are you seeing work well when it comes to, engaging potential, new parents and then getting them in the door?
Well, I'm finding, as with most marketers, I think video, having video ads is certainly a really, really good strategy. And again, I think focusing on having, making your dancers the stars of the advertisements. Offline, there's certain things that you can do that are still very effective. I think probably, school newsletters are great for targeting areas as well, because it's probably one of the only pieces of paper or even emails that majority of parents are still going to be reading. And I think that the targeting features that you have with social media are phenomenal. But again, it comes down to your message market match and figuring out what you're going to be doing. And I think consistency is really, really important. With my type of marketing and copywriting, I'm what's called a direct response copywriter. So I always have a call to action, and I always have, I'm always asking for a response. Whereas some other marketers are all about branding. So I think consistently being there with a message, having, being able to use different types of things that people ask. So if somebody said to me, Eve, I have to make 10 marketing pieces that I can use across every single platform, online and offline, what would I do? I would probably say addressing frequently asked questions. So, we all have that same question where people ask us again and again and again and again and again, and it's just turning it on its head and having, that the response to that could be written, it could be in a video as well, so that you're addressing the issues that parents might actually have about, because my daughter's studying foundation, so the prep class, which is the first year of school, big school, and I was a little bit concerned, well, she's doing this, and do I keep her in all of her sports and her dancing? And when I sort of expressed my concern to the principal, and she said, she needs something that is familiar with girls that she knows, because she's got to go and learn, meet 45 other new kids her age. Yeah. And this is great for, consistency where, she'll have those girls to go back with. Now, my mom was going, she's got to meet enough people, she's going to have enough to do. but she knew when I was asking her that question, she responded in a way and articulated what she was saying so well that I couldn't have articulated it better myself. And that's what I find when people are sharing really strong marketing messages. It's finding out the questions that people want to have and answering them before they've asked them. And probably the one thing that makes a lot of people unstuck is being able to, and you'll see it if you look at copywriting or marketing, probably the number one piece of advice that people give is to write how you speak. Now, I like to go one little step further, and you need to write how your client speaks. So you need to be having conversations with them and hearing words that they're using as well. You might have noticed I hesitated before when I was talking about my daughter's class. They've just changed the wording here in the state where I live from prep class to foundation. And when we did the marketing for the school, because I'm on the committee, I said we need to have both, because there's a lot of people that wouldn't understand what foundation is.
Totally.
So it comes down to using the words that your clients are using, and having conversations and surveying them and just talking to people on a basis. You'll find that people will give you absolute gold for your marketing. I think that's probably the key to my success, has been, rather than just talking to my clients, I talk to my clients' clients. Because my clients get told, certain things 3 or 4 times a day. And when I hear it, I'm hearing it for the first time, and I'm thinking, oh, they're giving me absolute gold here. So speaking and communicating using the words that your clients use, and making sure that that you do speak to them on a regular basis, because they will give you marketing gold that you're able to use. And if one person, it's that old adage that if one person's asking the question, there's 10 people that haven't come forward with that particular question but still want to know the answer.
Yeah, it's just gold. I mean, look, I could talk to you for so much longer, but I know that we've got to wrap up. Eve, to kind of finish up this great conversation that we've had, what is one piece of advice that you would love to give our studio owners who are looking to grow their business? Just one golden nugget for them.
Do you know, this is something that I speak on a lot. This is actually what I'm going to be on stage talking about, and it's not being afraid to fail. Now, in my business, I've had a failure that cost myself and my husband $250,000. But from that failure, I started another business that is doing exceptionally well. So not being afraid to fail, looking at what is the worst case scenario. And I look at things and I think, am I going to take, what happens, what's my opportunity, what would happen if I fail, so I always look at, my children will still love me if this promotion doesn't go well. My husband will still love me if this promotion doesn't go well. My clients is going to roll their eyes and go, oh, she's done something crazy again. But not being afraid to fail, but also knowing your numbers and tracking. So if you do fail, you can fail fast. So if you put an ad up on a social platform and you're not getting any interaction in 5 or 6 hours, then you need to look at, okay, well, that's probably not the best shot, so give it another try. But I think what stops people in their tracks is the fear of failure. And I have failed on several epic scales, but I've always come back from it. And I think that if I hadn't failed, and with my first business that cost us $250,000, I probably would be back at work, working full time in doing training for the government, and not being able to be on podcasts like this or go and pick my kids up from school. So I think looking at what is the worst thing that can happen. Because if you remove fear, and we're all afraid of ghosts that are never going to eventuate. So, I always say, if you can take the worst, take the risk.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. Great advice to wrap up this conversation. Eve, where can our listeners go to get more information about you and your services?
Well, they can go to my personal website, which is evejohn.com.au, evejohn.com.au. So that's evejohn.com.au. And I've got some info there about failure and what they can do in business, and they can shoot me an email, and I'd love to connect with them on social media as well. You can find me on social media just with Eve John, and you'll see my lovely smiling photo with the last time that I met Arnold Schwarzenegger. I love to connect because I do share a lot of things around the fear of failure and going forward, and obviously lots of marketing tips and strategies, and I even share what's worked in my business and what's bombed, and I'm a paid professional to do this. So I think it's important to look at the who you're obliged to provide that opportunity for. And I can tell you from experience, dance studios make such an impact on people's lives. Last week, actually, I lost a friend who I met when I was dancing, and I'd known her for nearly 27 years. And when I went, sadly, to the funeral, I saw girls that we danced with. And when all the photos came up, there were these beautiful costumes, and we named the songs that we were there. And just to think, it was the gift of dance that really that gave me so many friendships. So that's what you guys are creating. You're creating friendships. You're giving people opportunities to enjoy what they've enjoyed with their children. And that's what I want you to remember, because that's what dance is about. It's about enjoyment, movement, and love.
Oh, such a powerful way. And thank you to end. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I think as, studio owners that are listening, we need to remember that you mentioned it before. It's more than the steps. It's more than just coming in and teaching a class. Dance builds amazing, resilient, confident, fun, humorous human beings.
Yes, definitely.
So thanks, Eve. It's been great chatting with you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. For all the resource links from the show and to receive access to our free dance studio growth training, make sure you visit transformmydancestudio.com.